Pete.
How are you, Jack?
Alrighty, mate. And yourself?
Oh, I'm very well, very well.
And how's the Tamworth weather treating you?
It's been stinking. It's not too bad today, but it's been pretty warm. But that's Tamworth, isn't it? You just got to put up with that. If you didn't like it, you wouldn't come.
My bloody oath.
Yeah. Well, I don't like it, and I still come though.
Pete, I read that during your childhood, you spent some time in Japan.
Yep. Well, my mum's Japanese. She's from Hiroshima.
Yep.
And so my earliest memories of living existing are in Japan. So when I was 2.5, around about there, I remember the sights and the sounds and the smells and everything and the tastes of Japan, and that's what the first things I remember, like being at my grandparents' place in Hiroshima and watching my old grandmother light the fire under the boiler and under the house. And it was an old house with the sliding wooden and paper doors. It was a beautiful old place. So. And Hiroshima's a beautiful part of the world, so I feel a very strong connection with there whenever I go back.
Oh, okay. When was the first time you learned to play an instrument?
I learnt piano when I was about 6,
Yep.
so that was the first thing. And then when I was 9, I started on the violin. And after that, I started developing an interest in country music and taught myself guitar when I was about 12. I got a book from the library, and Mum had an old guitar there, and I busted the handle off a plastic spoon, and that was my first pick. And she was good because my thumb used to fit right in the scooping bit, you know. And it was a great book. I wish I could find it. I've never seen it since. It was all illustrated and no photos, but it was a really easy to understand book. And I was only 12, and I found it really helpful. Tips out of that I still remember now, and I wish I could find it, but I just got it out of the library, and that's how I taught myself. Yeah.
And how many instruments can you play?
Oh well,
or have you mastered
all the ones? None of them. You never stop learning. You know, I suppose the main ones I use are guitar and violin, and then I play a bit of mandolin and a bit of banjo, and I've played a bit of accordion, and guitar and fiddle would be my two main ones. But I just love those instruments. You know, I'd love to get a dobro as well and play around with that. I guess because most of my work outside the comedy thing is probably more in the bluegrass world.
Yep.
So that sort of real acoustic bass music. And, I love that. I love to get a double bass and have the lot sitting in my room at home. Yeah.
Do you have enough room?
Just a whole bluegrass band minus the players.
Minus the players.
Yeah.
When was your first professional performance?
Ooh, that's hard to say. I guess by professional, that's really getting paid. Well, we did a few jobs when we were kids, and we got paid bits and pieces here and there. But I guess I really started. I was playing for a long time, coming to Tamworth for a long time, and we were getting paid here. But it wasn't my job. You know, I wasn't doing it for a living. I didn't probably start making a living out of it till about the mid-90s, I guess, when it really kicked in as a serious. My job. I was teaching music in a few schools around Wangaratta, but then I was playing in a band in Melbourne called the Ploughboys. I was their fiddle player, Damien Howard and the Ploughboys. They're playing here this year, Tamworth. And I was living in Wangaratta. It was about 3 hours out of Melbourne, and I was driving down every week to play down there, and then eventually I moved down for about 3 years, and we were playing mostly in Irish pubs and doing folk festivals and things like that. So that's when it really kicked in, and that I was a musician, and this was my full-time job. And it was mostly fiddle playing. We had singers and guitar players in the band, so I was just on the fiddle mostly, and then that led to other jobs. I got jobs with I toured with Slim Dusty for 4 years, so I left the Ploughboys and joined the Travelling Country Band, where I did comedy in the show and played fiddle in the band as well.
Tinker's gramophone.
I did that on New Faces, and on Red Faces I did. I've been on Red Faces 3 times, never won. But New Faces I did the
New Faces.
gramophone, yeah.
And I believe you cut a verse out of it.
Yeah, gee, you got a good memory.
My bloody oath.
I did cut a verse out of that. It was. I had to get it down to 2 minutes, I think, or just under 2 minutes. Or I had to cut it significantly down anyway. So it was, that was a tough job. Yeah, because being a comedy song, it's all sort of, each bit's relevant to the other, so I had to join a few things up, and that was the only time I ever did that version. Went back to originals pretty soon after.
And how long did it take you to write that particular song?
I forget. I was 19, I think, 18 or 19 when I wrote it, and I think I wrote it on a brown paper bag. I think I must have the original at home somewhere, but the tune, the melody of that song, initially it was going to be a song called Galloping Over the Clouds, whatever the hell that means. But yeah, and then the idea I think came from, well, we had an old tape player that used to play tapes backwards and get all those sounds, so that's where I got the idea for the song. Yeah, the cantankerous gramophone. It's a hell of a word to put in a song, cantankerous.
Cantankerous, yeah.
You wouldn't put it in any straight song.
No. And you mentioned about Slim Dusty. How long were you with the Slim Dusty show?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah. 98 to 2002. So 98 to pretty much is the last show full tour we did. Yeah.
And how were those shows like?
Yeah, they were great. Yeah. Yeah, we saw some really amazing things on that run. I suppose one of the highlights for me would have been when we were in the Solomon Islands. We played at this footy oval, and we were waiting backstage. They built this stage, outdoor stage, for the show, and the oval was just absolutely chockers. And then there was a hill up to the side, and that was absolutely chockers. I got no idea how many people were there, thousands. And Slim got a police escort in, and off we went playing. And the kids there had never seen a violin before. Well, that's how it seemed anyway. Every time I took a violin solo, they went nuts. I couldn't actually hear myself play because well, not just the kids, the whole crowd just went nuts. And someone said to me next day, you know, if you came back here in a week's time with a shipload of fiddles, you'd make an absolute fortune. Because there were kids running around next day with sticks under their chins, and other sticks going like this.
Dead set. Bloody hell, you made a big impression on me.
Well, the violin did anyway.
And Pete, your song Sort of Don't Know Nothing, now that proved to be a big hit, or a kind of a big hit. It played on TV and everywhere else, on radio. What's the story behind that?
Oh, that was born out of 3 weeks of writer's block. I was just writing for an album, and with songs like that, sometimes you just need a trigger for an idea, and I had that trigger, so I just thought. I had some friends coming up that afternoon. I was really frustrated that I hadn't been writing, and I was rehearsing the conversation I was going to have with them in my head, which was, what have you been doing? I've been doing nothing. I'm just trying to write songs, but I've been sitting here for 3 weeks doing nothing. And that just triggered the idea then, and because then I remembered I had a mate he said, his mum said whenever he used to go out when he was young, she'd say to him next morning, where'd you go last night? Nowhere. Who'd you see? No one. What'd you do? Nothing. And that's what I based the song on. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And in 2006 you were inducted into the Hands of Fame.
Yeah. Was that 2006?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
You can check it up.
Oh, no, I'll believe it.
You believe it.
Yeah.
Thousands wouldn't.
Yeah.
What other accolades have you gained?
Oh, gee, that's a...
TSA awards?
Well, I can count them on one hand. Yeah, no, actually, I think I've got 4 TSA awards as songwriting over the years for comedy and children's songs, and a couple of golden guitars. I don't enter awards much. Yeah, I've got them. So.
Well, that's all you need.
That's all I need, really.
You put on a bloody good show.
A couple of golden guitars to line up each end of the mantelpiece. Don't want to get too greedy.
No, exactly. And who were your influences in country music?
Early on, Slim was I really like Slim's old rodeo songs.
Yep.
And I liked that. I liked the sound of. There were certain this morning, for instance, we had Paul Trinwith playing banjo with us, and his wife or ex-wife Colleen was a great fiddle player, and I used to love their sound. And then as time went on, Doc Watson and Tony Rice and Norman Blake and that sort of stuff became. It was Charlie Boyder who played guitar with Slim introduced me to, when I was pretty young, he introduced me to Doc Watson.
Oh, okay.
And I'd listen to that stuff, and then you try to pick like those boys. Never cut it, but you try. You aim for that. And then I heard Vassar Clements, the fiddle player, and then you get into the fiddle players, and that's what interests me. A lot of the stuff that I listen to now is probably it's mostly acoustics music that I listen to when I'm just driving along.
And when are you going to release? Have you got a new release out?
No, I'm hoping to record this year. I've got a bit of comedy stuff that I want to record, so it's sort of, I keep the comedy and the straight music separate. I used to put them, I'd sometimes have them on the same CD, but that doesn't really work. And it's like hearing a gag in the middle of an album all the time, so I just keep them separate now. But I've got a new song this year that's been going pretty well in the comedy line, but I'd like to write another lot of straight songs too. And I've got a couple of ideas for recording this year that I'm just going to run past a few blokes while I'm here, and I've already spoken to them about it. So we've got a lot of great pickers floating around Tamworth, and there's a big resurgence of sort of rootsy music happening in Melbourne at the moment. So and that's very exciting. So I'd like to sort of, it's a bit hard for me to get involved with that because I'm away, I'm 3 hours out of Melbourne, but to utilise those players down there, some great pickers.
And one song, I think it was on your debut album, brownish cover.
Oh yeah.
The first album.
Yeah, first one, yeah.
The Soggy Weet-Bix. Oh. Now, come on now.
Yeah.
How did you write that? What comes up?
I've got no idea. I would have been 18 when I wrote that. Yeah, or 17 or 18. I can't. I can't even remember. Yeah, it must have been about that age, I suppose. Yeah, I can't remember what I was thinking. I don't think I was thinking. I've had 1 or 2 people in the last 23 years ask me to sing that, and I couldn't sing it. I've forgotten it. Yeah.
Dead set.
Yeah, and it's sort of a deliberate choice too.
You got it. So do you like your Weet-Bix, Soggy?
No, I don't eat Weet-Bix.
You don't? And you're going on tour?
I've got a few things, Jack, coming up. Yeah, not so much touring, but some festivals this year, and I've got one, going down to Tassie in Feb, and February's not overly busy, because after Tamworth it's nice to have a little bit of a spell, but just do some other stuff too, and you don't have to be gigging all the time. I mean, writing's part of the work, practice is part of the work, so I've got to really do some of that, because 2013 I didn't write a lot, so I'm really looking forward to sort of hooking into a bit of that when I get home, a bit of co-writing, and just sort of recharge the batteries a bit.
And have you got any advice for any aspiring country singers or fiddle players that's coming up in the ranks?
Yeah, there's never any one thing. I think one important thing though is to really get your own sound. That's a very, very important thing. Just to have a show or a sound or whatever that no one else is doing, and it's not that hard if you just if you just sound like yourself. If sounding like yourself, if you're a crap singer,
yep,
you want to do something about it. Anything, like if I'm playing some fiddle and I go, well, that sounded like crap. Well, I've got to improve that. I've got to get that. If I always scratch on that particular phrase on my fiddle, so righto, let's work on that phrase and get that scratch out of it. So you get all the scratches out of your voice and your performance. But if you're sounding good, you want to sound like yourself, so that when people hear you on the radio, they immediately know that it's that person singing. I think that's very important, because otherwise, if you do sound like someone else, you'll get mistaken.
True.
For someone else, and you might as well. I know that's a lot of people say be true to yourself and all that, but you just got to sound like yourself, and it's not an easy thing to do. I think that's the hard thing, especially if you really admire another singer and you listen to their music all the time. All you want to do is be them, sound like them. That's your hero. But anyone you listen to that has really sort of gone somewhere, they usually sound pretty different. Usually. Not always.
Not always.
But usually they do. I mean, if you hear Dolly Parton come on the radio, you know it's Dolly.
Straight away.
And no one else sounds like Dolly.
No, definitely not.
And Sarah Storer, you hear Willie Nelson or any great singer. You hear Lyle Lovett, or they all just sound like themselves. Alison Krauss.
You named a few good artists there.
Well, there's some of my favourites.
And if anyone wants to get in contact with you for CDs and all that?
PeteDenahy.com.au, and there's a store page there,
Yep.
and they can just click on that and buy away.
Buy away. Well, Pete,
Thanks very much, Jack.
Talk to you, and we hope to catch up with you in Tamworth once again.
Yeah, good. Thanks a lot.